Tommy Burns, the late great Tommy Burns, was on the pitch and basically coached me throughout the game. Every time I had the ball, he was available to take the pass. Every time he passed the ball to me, he was giving me an instruction with it. I signed for Celtic on a part-time basis in 1987. I just started Jordan Hill College, where I was doing a sports science and sports management degree. I had it in my mind that I wanted to get my education organised. Believe it or not, I was actually quite bright. Attained quite a number of hires at St Ninian's High School, which ironically is now where the Celtic Academy's footballers go. So in Kirkintilloch, went to St Ninian's High. Did fairly well academically, could have done a lot better if I hadn't been playing football 7 days a week prior to exams. But played for Easter Craig's Boys Club, a renowned Glasgow and Scottish boys club, East End of Glasgow, and from there Celtic asked me to go on trial. First of all to Vale of Clyde in a junior game for a testimonial for a Vale of Clyde player. And I played there on the Sunday, did okay, had played on the Saturday for Easter Craig's, played on the Sunday for Celtic in a mixture of reserves and prominent youth players. Guys like Jerry Britton and Stevie Fulton were in that team, along with players like Tony Shepherd, Alan McKnight, Anton Rogan. Those were the kind of players that were in and around that team. I did okay, and Celtic then invited me up on a Tuesday evening to play at Dens Park in a Premier Reserve League game, where, for my luck, and is pretty much why I was offered the contract, I'm pretty sure of it, Tommy Burns was coming back from injury and played directly in front of me. I played as a left fullback primarily, sometimes wide left in a five, sometimes in the middle of midfield, but probably over my career most regularly was played as a left back. Because they couldn't find any others, to be fair. Anyway, I played as a left back that evening at Dens Park, and Tommy Burns, the late great Tommy Burns, was on the pitch and basically coached me throughout the game. Every time I had the ball, he was available to take the pass. Every time he passed the ball to me, he was giving me an instruction with it. Straight after the game, Tommy sat next to me in the dressing room, was asking me, what other interest there was in me, and I'd explained that there were a number of Premier League clubs in Scotland and indeed England that were kind of monitoring my progress. I had already had offers from Motherwell and Hearts. St Johnstone were very keen as well, but I hadn't done anything. And Tommy basically kind of sat next to me and asked me all about that. Just as he was doing that, Billy McNeill, who was a manager at the time, and Tommy Craig, his assistant, came into the Dens Park dressing room. And they walked straight over to me and they said, "Des, you did very well, son. We would like to offer you a contract with Celtic." And Tommy Craig then said to Tommy Burns, "Tam, there's only one problem with this boy. He plays too much football." I'll remember it to the day I die. He tapped me in the thigh and said, "Des, you can't play too much football." And that was my start to professional football. I went into Celtic as a part-time player, and then it didn't develop as quickly as the full-time players. Clearly they were in every day. I was getting in every time I could from college. Played in the reserve team, and indeed at that time there was a Reserve League West team as well. So played alongside some brilliant guys, some seasoned pros, McAvenny, Mark McGee, Mick McCarthy. Played, I think, my second reserve games at St Mirren. Mick McCarthy was playing, he was coming back from injury. So I get the opportunity to train with the first team on a number of occasions, and back then, Ian, I'm sure you'll appreciate it's not quite like it is now. There were probably, I was telling somebody this the other day, there was probably only 28 players in the squad. So the reserve team, maybe 30. The first team would have their 14, 15, maybe Billy McNeill would ask for 2 or 3 to come up, and then the reserves and some of the youth players would train, on a different pitch. We trained at Helen Vale, the old AstroTurf, while Celtic's first team were down at Barrowfield. And on a number of occasions I was asked to go and train with the first team, which was absolutely magnificent. A few people had the same approach as Tommy, I have to say. Tommy was a very unique individual and a beautiful human being, and I don't think you'll ever hear anybody say anything differently. But it certainly gave me an insight into what the young player felt, hearing from the experienced guy. Believe it or not, and this is bizarre. It truly is bizarre. I've found myself in many situations throughout my life where I actually sometimes have to pinch myself afterwards because I kind of took it in my stride. I knew that Billy McNeill was a Celtic great. I knew that he was the manager of the club. I knew that all he had done for the club during his time as a player and now as a manager. So, and this was his second spell at Celtic. So I knew, I really did know, how important an individual he was. Didn't affect me in terms of, I didn't feel that, I didn't feel intimidated or nervous. And I've been like that most of my life. I don't get spooked or you said, did you squeak? It wasn't overconfidence. It was just Mr. McNeill and I would shake his hand and that was it. It didn't really, looking back on it, I could understand why I could have been quivering in my boots, but I wasn't. And I think that maybe is how I've approached meeting certain individuals throughout my life, in football and outside of football, where I've been very privileged to meet a lot of really, really talented and really important people. Not sure I broke up with him. I made a conscious decision, Ian, that I wanted to continue with my studies. And at the end of the season, it was conveyed to me that the club felt that I would need to go full time to be able to develop at the rate that they thought I needed to develop. And I was 1 year into a 3-year degree course at Jordan Hill and decided that then that wasn't for me. I think there's a line in my narrative somewhere that I never get my ambitions mixed up with my abilities. Was I good enough to play in Celtic's first team? Probably not. In fact, I'm pretty sure I wasn't, or I would have probably been given that opportunity. But guys so Jerry Craney was the only other part-timer when I was there. And Jerry then went full-time the next season. He'd finished school, he'd finished his 6th year at school, I think, and then went full-time. And within a year, he was scoring goals for the first team and then transferred down to Portsmouth and Man City. Played a great career, and that might have happened, but I'm quite content that I made a decision and I've done okay. I've done absolutely fine. I've had a good kick at it in football. I've also, alongside my football, I've performed fairly well in business, and I say fairly well, not brilliantly, but been involved in business 30 years now, and my own business for the guts of 20. So I've done okay. I'm all right. I'm happy with that. I think the decision I made was the right decision for me. Many other boys, players, and now girls getting into football might make a different decision, but it might not work out just quite as well for them.